The heavy boots echoed sharply on the cracked concrete as Emma stepped through the military base gates for the very first time. The sun was relentless that morning, beating down on the rows of uniformed soldiers, moving with practiced precision. Emma's heart pounded against her ribs, a mix of excitement and uncertainty swirling in her chest. At 22, she was younger and smaller than most of the recruits. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the straps on her backpack. No one paid her much attention, just another face in a crowd, another novice soldier who might not last the first few weeks. The whispers had already started. She looks fragile, some said. Does she even know what she's getting into? Others barely looked her way at all. But Emma wasn't here for their approval. She carried a quiet determination beneath her calm exterior. This was more than just a job or a uniform. This was a chance to prove something to herself, to show that she belonged. As the day dragged on, Emma was thrown into the relentless grind of basic training. The instructors barked orders, demanding more than she thought she could give. She ran until her legs screamed and pushed through drills that left her gasping for breath. Her body ached in ways she hadn't known possible, every muscle protesting the strain. But the toughest challenge wasn't physical. It was the unspoken judgment from those around her. Veterans eyed her with skepticism, some barely hiding their impatience. She's just a girl playing soldier, they muttered. The harsh reality hit her. She had to fight not just the training, but the doubt everyone had already cast on her. At night, when the camp fell silent, Emma lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling, muscles throbbing, mind restless. She thought of home, the quiet streets, her family's warm smiles, but mostly she thought about why she was here. She wasn't like the others. She couldn't rely on brute strength or years of experience. What she had was something else: patience, focus, and a deep hunger to learn. She vowed to herself that she wouldn't break. She would endure. She would rise. During one particularly grueling shooting practice, Emma's focus sharpened as she steadied her breath and took aim at the distant target. The world around her faded until it was just her, the rifle, and the target. Her shot rang out, hitting the bullseye dead center. The sniper instructor, a man with years of battle etched into his face, noticed. He walked over quietly, eyes narrowing as he looked at the target. "Not bad for a rookie," he said, voice low but firm. It wasn't praise, but it was enough to spark a flicker of hope inside Emma. This was the opening she needed. Maybe she wasn't just another recruit after all. That night, as the camp settled into uneasy quiet, Emma lay awake again, thinking about what lay ahead. The sniper's world was different, colder, lonelier, more dangerous. It demanded silence and patience in equal measure. She knew the training would be brutal, the hours long and unforgiving. But for the first time since she arrived, she felt a glimmer of purpose. She was no longer just the nervous recruit. She was stepping into the shadows, where every second counted, and every breath could mean life or death. The next morning, the sun rose over the camp, casting long shadows on the dusty ground. Emma stood taller now, her resolve hardening like steel. The whispers of doubt still lingered, but they no longer fazed her. She was ready to face whatever came next. The world might see her as a novice soldier, but beneath the surface, the sniper was already beginning to take shape. And no one had seen that part of her yet. The morning fog clung to the base like a heavy blanket, dulling the sharp edges of the buildings and the faces of the soldiers milling about. Emma moved silently through the cold air, her footsteps light but determined. The weight of doubt pressed down on her more heavily than the gear on her back. She could hear the whispers again, quiet, but unmistakable. She'll never make it. Too soft for this life. Why is she even here? Each word cut deeper than any drill instructor's bark. The harsh truth settled in her chest. She wasn't just fighting the brutal training, but the judgment of every pair of eyes watching her. Emma kept her head down and her thoughts guarded. She had no intention of proving anyone wrong with words. Instead, She planned to do it with action. The days blurred into an exhausting routine. Before dawn runs, endless drills, heavy equipment marches, and cold meals eaten in silence. Every muscle ached, and every night, sleep came hard and restless. Yet, through it all, she never gave herself permission to quit. Not once. There was a fire inside her, something fierce and quiet that wouldn't be doused by exhaustion or skepticism. She noticed the looks from the other soldiers, the sideways glances and barely concealed smirks whenever she struggled during physical exercises. There was no camaraderie extended her way, no pats on the back or words of encouragement. Instead, she was a constant reminder of their own doubts and fears, and she felt it. But Emma knew that the hardest battles were often fought within, in the silence of early mornings and the ache of sore muscles. If she could endure that, she could endure anything. During a particularly brutal obstacle course, Emma's breath was ragged and her legs trembled, but she pushed herself through the mud and barbed wire. One of the more experienced soldiers, Jake, slowed as she climbed a wall and muttered, "She's tough, I'll give her that." It wasn't praise loud enough for the whole group to hear, but it was a start. Emma barely registered it. She wasn't here for approval. She was here to survive and eventually to excel. At night, alone in the barracks, Emma pulled out a small notebook. It was worn and filled with notes, sketches of shooting stances, breathing exercises, and mental focus techniques she'd studied on her own. While others relaxed or complained, Emma used every spare moment to sharpen her mind and skills. She knew she had to be smarter, not just stronger. The world outside might see only a novice soldier, but she was quietly building something far more powerful. One evening, after a long day of drills, the sniper instructor approached her quietly as she cleaned her rifle. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. "You're not like the others," he said simply. "You think, you wait, you watch." That's the start of a sniper's mind. Emma looked up, surprised by his words. He wasn't offering kindness, but recognition, something far more valuable. It was a hint of trust, an invitation into a hidden world she barely understood but desperately wanted to join. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change. Emma was pulled from the general training and introduced to the sniper unit, a small, tight-knit group where silence was as important as skill. The training here was different. Longer hours spent in stillness, perfecting patience and precision. It wasn't just about hitting targets. It was about learning to become invisible, to move like a shadow, to breathe without betraying your presence. The mental challenges were tougher than any physical test she'd faced. Each session pushed her to the edge of frustration and beyond. One afternoon, as the sun set low behind the hills, Emma lay prone on a cold patch of earth, her rifle steady against her shoulder. Hours had passed with nothing but the sound of the wind. Her muscles screamed from staying still, but her focus never wavered. The sniper beside her, an older soldier with years of experience, nodded quietly. "You're learning," he said. "This is where the real soldier is made." Emma's thoughts drifted back to the whispers, the doubt, the tired mornings. None of it mattered anymore. She was no longer just the girl who arrived full of hope and fear. She was becoming something else, a soldier forged in silence, patience, and steel. The world might see a novice, but beneath that uniform, she was already a sniper in the making. And this time, no one would underestimate her. Emma's hands tightened around the rifle as she steadied her breath, her eyes locked on the distant target. The training ground was quiet except for the faint rustle of leaves and the steady rhythm of her heartbeat pounding in her ears. For months, she had pushed herself through grueling drills, long hours of silent waiting and endless repetitions. But today was different. Today, she had the chance to prove something, not just to the others, but to herself. The sniper instructor stood a few feet away, watching her with an unreadable expression. His years in combat had hardened him, but Emma sensed something beneath his stern exterior, a flicker of respect. The target was small and far, barely visible through the dense brush. She had to control every muscle, every breath. One wrong move, one twitch, and the shot would be lost. Emma inhaled slowly, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet tore through the air and hit the bullseye with a sharp thud. The instructor's eyes narrowed, then lifted to meet hers. "Not bad," he said quietly. "You've got the patience, the focus, the mind for this." It wasn't praise wrapped in sugar. It was a challenge, an invitation to a new world. Emma felt a surge of determination. This was the turning point, the moment when she stopped being just a recruit and started becoming something more. The following days were a blur of intense training. Emma learned to read the terrain, to move like a shadow, to blend into the environment until she was nearly invisible. Every detail mattered. The way the wind shifted, the sound of distant footsteps, the subtle changes in light. She was taught how to anticipate, to think 2 steps ahead, and most importantly, to wait. Waiting was the hardest lesson. Hours could pass without a single movement, and yet the sniper had to be ready, every second alert. Emma's muscles cramped, her body ached, but her mind grew sharper. She learned to silence her thoughts, to focus on the smallest details, and to keep calm under pressure. One afternoon, after a long session lying motionless in the brush, Emma felt her confidence swell. The sniper instructor approached, his face less severe than usual. "You've got the eye," he said. "But a sniper isn't just a marksman. You have to understand the weight of your decisions. One bullet can change everything." Those words stayed with her. Emma realized that being a sniper wasn't just about skill, it was about responsibility. Every shot mattered. Every life depended on her judgment. It was a heavy burden, but one she was beginning to carry with quiet pride. Back at the camp, the other recruits still saw her as the quiet girl who had arrived uncertain and hesitant. Few knew the transformation happening behind the scenes. Emma didn't seek their approval. She was focused on becoming the soldier she had promised herself she would be. Late at night, Emma would practice alone, running through mental drills, perfecting her breathing, and reviewing everything she had learned. The sniper's world was a lonely one, but it suited her. She found comfort in the silence, in the control, in the knowledge that she was slowly becoming the protector her unit needed. Her progress did not go unnoticed. The sniper instructor began including her in more advanced exercises, sometimes pairing her with veterans who tested her resolve. Emma rose to every challenge, learning not just to shoot, but to survive, to adapt, and to think on her feet. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the training field, Emma sat quietly, cleaning her rifle. The world outside the camp remained unaware of the transformation unfolding within her. To them, she was still just a novice soldier. But Emma knew the truth. She was no longer that uncertain girl who had walked through the gates months ago. She was becoming a sniper, sharp, patient, and ready. The road ahead would be long and dangerous, but Emma was ready to face it. The world might not see the sniper who was being forged in silence, but she was ready to show them, when the time came, exactly who she was. Hours stretched into days as Emma lay motionless in the dense forest, the chill of the morning dew seeping through her uniform. Every muscle in her body ached, but she dared not move. The sniper's world was a world of silence and stillness, a place where patience was a weapon more powerful than any rifle. Her breath slowed, becoming shallow and controlled, as she focused on the faint rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, anything that could give away the enemy's presence. Time had no meaning here, only vigilance. The cold bit into her skin, the ground beneath her unforgiving, but Emma had learned to accept discomfort as part of the price for survival. It was the silence that was hardest. No chatter, no laughter, only the ticking of her own heartbeat and the slow crawl of minutes that felt like hours. She knew that a sniper's greatest enemy was impatience. One wrong twitch could mean failure, or worse. Her instructor had warned her, waiting is war. It wasn't just a phrase. It was a lesson she was learning with every second spent hidden in the undergrowth. Emma's mind fought against the creeping boredom and exhaustion, training herself to stay sharp, to notice the smallest detail, a shadow shifting, a crack in the twigs. She was learning to read the landscape like a book, to anticipate movement before it happened. During one particularly long session, Emma's patience was tested to its limits. The sun rose high and then dipped low again, and still she remained in her prone position, unmoving and alert. Her legs fell numb, and her fingers cramped from gripping the rifle. But she did not falter. The sniper beside her, a grizzled veteran, gave her a rare nod of approval. "You're holding steady," he said quietly. Most would have lost focus hours ago. That nod was more than praise. It was a recognition that Emma was becoming something different. The physical pain was a small price compared to the mental endurance required. She had to learn to quiet the storm inside her, to let the world move around her without pulling her attention away. As dusk settled, Emma's sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement far in the distance. The enemy had come into view, unaware of the silent observer lying in wait. She raised her rifle slowly, breath steady, finger poised on the trigger. But then a sudden noise, a branch snapping nearby, jerked her attention away, and the moment was lost. The target disappeared into the shadows. Frustration gnawed at her, but she forced herself to breathe evenly and reset her focus. This was the reality of the sniper's life: missed opportunities, patience tested again and again. She understood now that success was not always about the perfect shot, but about staying ready for when the right moment came. Back at camp, the physical toll of the training was obvious. Emma's uniform was stained with dirt and sweat, her face drawn and tired. But her eyes were sharper, more focused than ever. The sniper's silence had changed her. It had taught her resilience and discipline beyond what she thought possible. At night, she reflected on the lessons learned in the cold woods. It was not just about shooting straight, it was about mastering herself. The waiting, the stillness, the watching. These were the true battles. Emma realized she was being shaped into a sniper not just by her skills, but by her patience and mental strength. The quiet moments were where the sniper was made. The world outside the forest would see only the soldier who returned with dirt on her uniform. But Emma knew the truth. Every hour spent in silent vigil was a step closer to becoming the sniper she was meant to be: ready, calm, and invisible. The road ahead was uncertain, and dangers lurked in every shadow. But Emma was no longer the impatient recruit who had arrived full of doubts. She was learning to be still in the chaos, steady in the storm. And when the moment finally came to take the shot, she would be ready. The sound of boots crunching on gravel was sharp in the early morning air. Emma tightened the strap on her rifle and scanned the horizon, every sense alert. Today was her first real field exercise, a simulation designed to test everything she had learned. The base had transformed into a sprawling battlefield, complete with hidden enemies and shifting objectives. This was no longer a classroom. This was war in miniature. And Emma knew the stakes were high. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to breathe slowly and keep calm. She moved carefully through the trees, the weight of her gear pulling at her, but her focus unbroken. The sniper's world was one of patience and precision, but it was also a world of danger. One wrong step could mean exposure, failure, or worse. She remembered the lessons drilled into her. Watch for movement, read the wind, control your breathing. Her training had prepared her, but nothing could fully prepare someone for the reality of hiding in plain sight. Emma found a concealed spot atop a small hill, overlooking a narrow valley. From here, she could see enemy targets moving through the trees below. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting flickering shadows that could either hide her or give her away. She settled into position, her rifle steady as a rock beneath her cheek. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, but Emma didn't blink or shift. She was waiting for the perfect shot. Suddenly, movement caught her eye. A soldier stepping into the clearing, unaware of the danger above. Emma's finger hovered near the trigger. This was the moment. She exhaled slowly, squeezed gently, and the rifle cracked through the quiet. The target went down with a sharp thud. Relief and adrenaline surged through her, but she stayed still, eyes scanning for any sign of retaliation. The exercise was far from over. Enemy forces began to close in, forcing Emma to make quick decisions. She slipped away silently, moving from cover to cover, every step calculated. The sniper's life was a dance with shadows, and Emma was learning the rhythm. Each move required patience and nerve, a balance between action and stillness. Later, as the sun began to dip, Emma regrouped with her unit. Her fellow soldiers looked at her differently now, not just the quiet recruit, but someone who had held her ground under pressure. The sniper instructor gave a rare nod of approval. "You did well out there. You're learning what it means to be invisible." That night, back in her bunk, Emma reflected on the day. The fear and adrenaline still lingered, but so did a deep sense of accomplishment. The battlefield was harsh and unforgiving, but it was where she belonged. The novice soldier was fading away, replaced by someone stronger, sharper, more confident. Emma knew the real challenges were still ahead. The exercises were practice, but war was unpredictable and brutal. She thought of the men and women depending on her, the lives that might one day hang on her skill and patience. That responsibility weighed heavily on her, but it also fueled her determination. As the base settled into silence, Emma prepared for another day of training. She was no longer just the recruit who had walked through the gates months ago. She was becoming the sniper she had set out to be, patient, precise, and ready for whatever came next. The world might still see a novice soldier, but Emma was ready to prove that beneath that uniform was something far more powerful. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the training grounds. Emma sat quietly, cleaning her rifle with steady hands, but her mind was racing. Today's exercise had been different, more intense, more realistic. They were no longer practicing in controlled environments. Now, simulations mimicked the chaos and unpredictability of actual combat. Emma could feel the weight of every decision, every movement, every breath she took. Her instructor had just pulled her aside after the exercise, eyes sharp and serious. "You're improving, but there's something you need to understand," he said quietly. "Being a sniper isn't just about hitting targets from afar. It's about understanding the battlefield, reading your enemies, and knowing when to act and when to wait. Sometimes, the hardest shot is the one you don't take." Emma nodded, absorbing the words. She was learning that sniper work was as much mental as physical, a game of patience, discipline, and endurance. The pressure was immense. One mistake could cost lives. The instructor's gaze softened briefly. "You're ready for the next step. The real test isn't out here, it's inside your head." That night, Emma lay awake in her bunk, replaying the day's events. She thought about the targets she had missed, the shots she had taken, and the moments when doubt crept in. The training had been grueling, but it was shaping her in ways she hadn't imagined. She was becoming a soldier who could not only endure the physical demands, but also master the mental battlefield within. Over the following days, Emma's training intensified. She was pushed beyond her limits, tasked with exercises that tested her focus and resilience. She practiced tracking targets over long distances, calculating wind speed and trajectory, and mastering the art of camouflage. Every detail mattered. One misplaced leaf, one wrong shadow, could reveal her position. Emma found herself spending long hours alone in the field, blending into the landscape, becoming part of the environment. The silence was deafening, yet it sharpened her senses. She learned to listen to the faint rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of voices, the subtle shifts in the air. Each sound told story, and Emma became a silent observer, waiting patiently for the right moment. One afternoon, during a simulated mission, Emma spotted movement far ahead, a figure moving cautiously through the underbrush. Her heart pounded, but she reminded herself to stay calm. She adjusted her scope, calculated the distance, and steadied her breath. Just as she prepared to take the shot, a sudden noise from her left startled her. The target vanished before she could act. Frustration threatened to overwhelm her, but Emma took a deep breath and reminded herself that patience was her greatest weapon. The sniper's world was not about quick victories. It was about endurance, precision, and self-control. She lowered her rifle and melted back into the shadows, ready to wait for the next opportunity. Back at camp, Emma's fellow soldiers began to see her transformation. The once uncertain recruit had become a steady presence, respected for her calm under pressure and her unwavering focus. Yet Emma remained humble, knowing that the path ahead was still long and fraught with challenges. Late one evening, as the camp settled into quiet, Emma sat alone beneath a star-streaked sky. She reflected on how far she had come, from a novice soldier doubted by many to a sniper in the making. The journey had tested her in every way, but it had also revealed a strength she never knew she possessed. Emma's story was far from over. The world might still see her as a rookie, but she carried within her the heart of a sniper, silent, patient, and ready to face whatever lay ahead. And when the time came, she would be prepared to protect those who depended on her, hidden in the shadows, unseen but always watching. The crackling of radios and distant orders filled the air as Emma crouched low behind a fallen log, her rifle resting steady in her hands. This was no ordinary training exercise anymore. It was a full-scale mock mission designed to simulate real combat conditions. The tension was thick, and Emma could feel her heart pounding beneath the weight of her gear. Every sound, every shadow could mean danger. But she was ready. She had to be. Her unit moved with practiced precision, but Emma's role was different. She was the silent watcher, the unseen protector. She scanned the horizon through her scope, her eyes sharp and unblinking. Her training had taught her to be patient, to wait for the perfect moment. But today, patience was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Suddenly, a burst of gunfire erupted ahead. Chaos flared as soldiers scrambled for cover. Emma's focus sharpened instantly. Through the haze of smoke and the noise, she spotted a figure moving dangerously close to her comrades, an enemy scout attempting to flank them. Her breath slowed as she locked onto the target. Time seemed to stretch, each second weighted with consequence. The sniper instructor's words echoed in her mind. Know when to act and when to wait. But this was no time for hesitation. Emma squeezed the trigger, the shot cutting clean through the chaos. The enemy went down silently, unnoticed by others in the firefight. Relief and adrenaline surged through her, but she remained steady, eyes still scanning for any new threats. The firefight continued, but Emma's calm presence was a silent force, watching, waiting, protecting. She moved with fluid grace between vantage points, always careful to stay concealed. Her training had taught her to blend with the environment, to be invisible, but now she understood the deeper purpose. Survival depended on it. Hours later, as the simulated battle wound down, Emma gathered with her team. Exhausted but exhilarated, they exchanged nods of respect. For the first time, Emma felt she belonged, not just as the quiet recruit, but as an integral part of the unit. The whispers of doubt had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. That night, Emma sat alone, her rifle beside her, staring into the dark. The events of the day played over in her mind. She realized that being a sniper was more than a skill. It was a mindset. It required patience, yes, but also courage, quick thinking, and an unyielding commitment to protect others. Her thoughts drifted to the future, the missions yet to come, the challenges she would face. War was unpredictable and brutal, but Emma knew she was ready to meet it head-on. The novice soldier the world had once seen was gone. In her place stood a sniper forged through silence, discipline, and unwavering resolve. Emma's journey was far from over. The road ahead would be dangerous and uncertain, but she carried with her the strength to endure. Hidden in the shadows, unseen but always watching, she was prepared to face whatever came next, and to prove to the world the true power behind the silent soldier. The night was thick with silence as Emma lay hidden beneath a canopy of leaves, her rifle cradled against her shoulder. The moon cast a pale light over the rugged terrain, turning shadows into potential threats. This was no longer training. The mission ahead was real, her first deployment. Every nerve in her body was taut, every sense heightened. Emma had trained for this moment, but nothing could erase the weight of what lay before her. Her team moved quietly through the dense forest, the only sounds the soft crunch of boots and whispered commands over the radio. Emma's role was clear: to watch, to protect, to strike when the moment demanded. The months of grueling preparation had shaped her into this, a silent guardian, patient and precise. Ahead, the faint glow of a distant campfire flickered, marking the enemy's position. Emma's heart pounded, but her breath was steady. She adjusted her scope, taking in every detail. The distance was greater than any target she had practiced on, the stakes immeasurably higher. She reminded herself of everything her instructor had taught her. Control your breathing, account for wind and elevation. Wait for the perfect moment. Time slowed as she focused on the target. A group of enemy soldiers gathered near the fire, unaware of the danger looming above. Emma's finger hovered near the trigger, muscles tensed for the shot. Then a sudden movement, a child emerging from the shadows, running toward the campfire. The moment shattered. Emma's heart clenched. The shot was impossible without risking innocent life. She lowered her rifle, silently cursing the unpredictability of war. The sniper's job was not just to shoot, but to judge, to protect those who could not protect themselves. Emma's resolve deepened. The mission was not about glory. It was about responsibility, sacrifice, and unseen courage. Hours passed in tense silence. The team moved carefully, avoiding patrols and setting up positions. Emma's mind remained sharp, eyes scanning every inch of the landscape. She was no longer the hesitant recruit, but a soldier shaped by discipline and experience. As dawn broke, the enemy camp began to stir. Emma spotted an opportunity. A lone soldier separated from a group. The perfect shot. Her breath slowed, steady and controlled. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet found its mark silently, and the balance shifted. The team advanced, taking advantage of the confusion. The mission was a success, but Emma knew it was only the beginning. War was relentless, filled with moments like these, harsh, unforgiving, and demanding. Yet, she felt a quiet strength within her. The novice soldier the world once saw had become a sniper, a protector forged in patience, skill, and unwavering resolve. Later, as the team regrouped under the rising sun, Emma looked around at her comrades. They were tired, battle-worn, but alive. She felt pride, not in the shot she had taken, but in the journey that had brought her here. The path had been long and difficult, but it had led her to become who she was meant to be. The world may have only seen a novice soldier when she first arrived, but Emma knew the truth. Beneath the uniform was a sniper, silent, watchful, and ready to face the shadows, to protect those who could not protect themselves, and to prove that strength often lies in patience and quiet courage. Her story was no longer just about becoming. It was about being, and Emma was ready.